All right. Hey, good morning. It is Friday, May 17th, 2024, just after 8 a.m. 8:02, actually. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. Friday, man. The week has come to a close. We're getting ready for a nice weekend. I'll just be doing landscaping. Eric, what about you? What are you up to this weekend?
Well, tonight I'm going to Grand Marais for the 4th annual Rock On weekend, and I'm a speaker up there. They're putting me up in a nice little suite up there in Grand Marais, so I'm going to do a little talk and then go to the beach to do a little Uperlite hunting with some of my newfound friends.
Rock On weekend? What is that?
Yeah, so it started out as a girls' weekend, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, and it's morphed into this. Everybody bring their friends and family, but you got to be invited to it. And they get right around 100 people. And it's 2 or 3 days long up in Grand Marais, Michigan. And they go rock hounding for 3 or 4 days on Lake Superior in that whole region. And it is an absolute blast. They have a really great time. There's a ton of people. And this is going to be the second time they've had me come up and speak about Uperlites.
Cool, man. That sounds like fun. I like Grand Marais. That beach is loaded with rocks everywhere. I like I call them sugar donuts. They look like little flat rocks. They're just covered in what looks like sugar. Every time I went up there, I always grabbed a couple of those, put them somewhere in the garden. But yeah, Grand Marais is beautiful, man. I love that beach.
Yeah, it should be a good time. The wife's going with me for the first time, and we're going to stay the night and relax and unwind and get off social media for a while and take some pictures. It's going to be fun.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, I came across a couple of articles that I wanted to talk about. And I think I'm going to start with Tim Twentyman this morning, kind of winding back to who stood out at minicamp and then how it kind of ties into Rakestraw in his versatility. And then we're going to get into Florio and Pat Caputo, both talking about Jared Goff's contract, potential problems with the contract. And then we've got the Lions favored to win. So I think we've got a few good topics this morning. Show should be at least an hour. And I think we'll start right away with Tim Twentyman. So he had 10 questions with Twentyman. I like this deal that he does. I think this is kind of fun to go through his article here. So it came out on the 15th of May at 7 a.m. And he wanted to talk about the bloodbath, right? He said Lions general manager Brad Holmes described the upcoming battle at cornerback as a bloodbath. And he thought that was a very accurate description, as do I. I mean, I really feel, when Brad Holmes mentioned that, I'm like, man, yeah, it sounds like exactly what's about to happen, because you've got all of these corners now. I mean, it's a very deep room, and it's going to be interesting to see who comes out of it, who comes out on top, who's going to be starting week one. But he said the Lions are ranked 27th against the pass last year. Holmes and head coach Dan Campbell knew that they had to get better there, so they went to work this offseason. They traded for Carlton Davis, and then signed veteran Amik Robertson. They also re-signed Emmanuel Mosley, who missed all but 2 snaps last year with the torn ACL, second torn ACL in as many seasons. And Kindle Vildor, who was a starter at the end of last year, who I said would be back. Mosley was a starter for the 49ers before the knee troubles began. Then came the additions of Terrion Arnold, obviously picked number 24 overall in this year's draft, and Ennis Rakestraw, picked at number 61 overall in this year's draft, was our first 2 draft picks this season. We also can't forget about the young players like Khalil Dorsey and Stephen Gilmore. He goes on to say that competition breeds success, and there will be plenty of competition for starting spots, playing roles, and roster spots at cornerback. There's going to be a couple of good players who don't make the team, and that's what you want. Very difficult to go through, right? I mean, it's very tough to get rid of good players, but the thing that Lions fans are going to start to realize quickly is some of your favorite players will not be here. And I literally mean that. They could be your favorite players. Could be players that you've been watching, that you like watching. Maybe they've played well in the past, or maybe they were draft picks recently that just haven't panned out. So I've got a hot take on Friday that I will get to here in just a moment, talking about certain individuals that may not make the roster this year. And I guess, Eric, while we're going through this morning, kind of think of some players that may not make the roster that were on the roster last year.
I have one.
All right, we'll get to it here. We'll get to it here in a little bit. Okay, so this ties into Rakestraw's versatility. And I really liked this piece, again, by Tim Twentyman, talking about Rakestraw and where he kind of started during rookie minicamp. Obviously, I didn't have a chance to get there, but he said after the Lions drafted cornerback Ennis Rakestraw Jr. in the second round, they mentioned his toughness and versatility to play both outside and in the slot. They were both reasons as to why he's such a good fit for the Detroit defense. Now, many of us would think right away, well, why would we need somebody, in the slot necessarily, at nickel where Brian Branch has been? They're kind of two different positions, technically, but you would say that they're also interchangeable, right? I don't know if Ennis Rakestraw is going to beat out Brian Branch, for a nickel position or a slot position, even Amik Robertson for a slot position. But what I will say is, if they're looking to add more depth on this roster at more positions, bringing Ennis Rakestraw down into the slot right away is a good move, but it also gives us more positional versatility with a young player, where then Brian Branch can go back and play safety as needed or when wanted to, depending on the game plan. So he goes on to say that the versatility kind of stood out the first day of rookie minicamp for Rakestraw. He played both outside and in the slot in his limited reps. Now, he had limited reps because he had core muscle surgery this offseason. And so they're kind of giving him a pitch count to begin the year and wanting to kind of bring him through this a little bit slowly so they can keep him healthy for the duration. Obviously, you don't want to, upset that surgical site too much. You just kind of want to let it naturally heal and get stronger. So Rakestraw went on to say this. He said, that's how I played my freshman year at Missouri as a starter. I started nickel, and then I started an outside corner. To me, that's just my home. He said, I started the first day there, so probably big picture, probably maybe. I don't know what that means, but it don't matter where I play. I just want to be a part. That's a perfect fit on this team. It's exactly what Dan Campbell wants. He wants guys to just fit somewhere. We will find a spot for you to play if you earn it. And if you continue to work hard, you're going to find more minutes on the field. But it also speaks more to being a role player. If you remember, Eric, Dan Campbell speaks to this quite often. And he used to say it more about Jameson Williams last season, where he didn't need J-Mo to go out and get 1,000 yards and 100 balls and 10 touchdowns. He just needed him to play his role. I love this style of coaching in building this team, because you're building role players, guys that just need to go in and do their job, and that's it. Just focus on their job. Instead of worrying about everybody else, they just focus on their job. As long as you win your battles and everyone else is winning their battles, we should see a much better defense because of it. So right away, what do you think about the Lions getting Rakestraw, to be very versatile up front, even as a rookie? They didn't do that with Brian Branch last year. They stuck him in the nickel and they left him in nickel. They didn't, put him back at safety at all. So what do you think about that? And what do you think about what Tim Twentyman had to say about this? This training camp is going to be a bloodbath, and obviously competition breeds success.
Yeah. And Dan Campbell, he preaches, do your job, not anybody else's, do your job. The only time I don't like people to go off script is something like when Aiden had to go over and grab Jack Campbell and put him in the right position because he was not lined up correctly. That kind of stuff, that's perfect, But other than that, you need your people to do their job and not go off script and not do something they're not asked to do. Then it works like a well-oiled machine. Instead of 12 people working or 11 people working independently, you have 11 people working as one. And to be able to have someone that is a Swiss Army knife on that defense. And not only one, but have multiple people. You'll have Branch, you'll have Vaki, you'll have Rakestraw, all being able to play multiple positions. It will really, really help this defense. And one thing that happens is injuries. It's a gremlin. It's going to happen no matter what we want as fans. Injuries are a part of the game. And when you have someone that can just plop in a position when someone goes down for a few plays, it's like no one got hurt at all. And that will just help our defense to get to a level and stay at a level instead of being at a level for 3 or 4 games, losing a player, and then going right back to where we were. We just can't have that. So I think Rakestraw brings that versatility to help keep us at a certain level if someone goes down. And I'm going to tell you, within a year or two, I see that kid being a starter.
Yeah, I think it could be. I mean, he might potentially be a starter before we get out of this season at some point, especially if there's any injury, but let's just hope that there's not. Adam had a good question kind of right away here about teams that wear blue. Shouldn't, us as fans, if we're at the stadium or, at I guess, Ford Field, wear black jerseys to stand out more? I would say wear white. If there is a team that wears blue, I can't even think right now who's on the schedule this year that could potentially be wearing blue. Let's take a look.
Colts.
You've got the Colts, but we have the Colts away, so I think they wear white at home. I'm pretty sure they wear white at home.
I can tell you this, I'm going to be wearing a black jersey at every game I go to this year. I have 4 new black jerseys coming today in the mail. I can't wait.
So, I mean, you've got Buffalo. They've got a blue set, but it's a much different blue.
But that's at home.
And then you have Houston. They have a blue set, but it gets really dark. Yeah, I don't really see many teams this year. I mean, you've got Dallas, but I don't think that they have a blue set. They've got white and what else does Dallas wear? It's kind of a dark blue, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to your question, I would wear white. If I'm away, I would wear white if they're wearing blue. I guess here's the biggest thing, bring every color of jersey with you to the game. And just match what everyone else is wearing. If you see a sea of blue, wear blue. If you see a sea of white, wear white. If you see a sea of black, wear black. I don't know. That's a tough one. I think that last year when we were on the road, we wore a lot of blue and it really stood out. I mean, you could really, really tell we were there. And we're going to be there a lot more this year because bus trips are getting finalized. And again, I'll roll through this real quick. Bus trips again, finals. The Rock Down Detroit Lions game day bus trips 2024. We've got single day trips being planned right now to Green Bay, Chicago, and the Colts. Shout out to the Vikings and Green Bay for reaching out right away. Those were the first 2 teams that responded. We've got group tickets already locked in right now. We just got to wait until they figure out, one, how much they're going to be. Vikings, I was a little bit blown away at the price. And to be honest, I think we're kind of stuck in the 300s. That's where they put all of their group. So they may not be the most close seats, but they'll be decent seats. They're kind of in a corner. Probably the most unsold section is probably where they're going to fit all of the group rate.
There's not a bad seat in that stadium, though.
No, there really isn't. So Vikings, that'll be an overnighter, though. Texans and Cowboys still waiting to hear back from them and still waiting to hear back from the Colts. But as far as the bus stuff and all of that, that's all being worked on. I should have the full itinerary back today from the bus company. Yeah, I resent them a new itinerary yesterday or the day before. The day that the schedule came out, I gave them a new itinerary that we finally had dates and times that we could give them to kind of figure out if we needed to change drivers midway or not, or how it was going to work out overnight. And so we've got everything planned. It's going to be fun, man. We're going to try to fit all 6 of these games this year We will obviously request initial deposit would be like a third, and then we'll do a couple more payments, and then 30 days before every game, final payments have to be into the bus company. I'm not putting $300,000 out of my own money for this, so people are going to have to pony up their deposits. So anyway, that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a unique experience to have 50 fans on a bus traveling. It's going to be a great time.
So Will,
go for it.
I posted this on my social media, and I'm getting a lot of questions about how much the tickets are going to be for each individual one. And
I won't know.
So I am sending everyone over to you with your email. So
yeah, I won't know until they get back to us.
Okay.
So I know like there's an option for the Sky Deck at Chicago. If I want to go non-group rate, I can go Sky Deck at Chicago. And that package right now is close to $500 per person, which includes the bus, it includes food, it includes drink, it includes, everything else, the t-shirt, the Lions grab bag, the tailgate, all of that stuff. So that's actually not a bad rate. I've done the math. I mean, I've looked at flights too, to go to some of these longer trips, and you can't even get a flight with hotel for a couple of days because you're going to have to stay an extra day for flights, because flights are very difficult to get. A very early flight to get you in on time and a very late flight to get you home on time without paying an exorbitant, a huge amount of money. I don't get it. Like the early flights always seem to be the cheapest, but so I've done the math, and the bus makes sense if you're okay with being on a real comfortable bus for, up to 20 hours. Obviously a couple of breaks will be involved, but it's way bigger than being on a plane. Let's put it that way. So anyway, let's keep rolling with this. I feel like, I'm really interested to see where Rakestraw ends up this year. I do believe that he has a chance to get more minutes than what's been projected already. Terrion Arnold, to me, I think is going to be the one rookie that we've taken this year that is going to get a lot of playing time. We'll see more. I mean, right, regular OTAs start here pretty soon, and I think that that's where we're going to get the best information possible this early in the season about Ennis Rakestraw and Terrion Arnold, and where they're matching up against Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, playing well with the rest of the defense or not. It's a long road, for these guys, especially as rookies. So they've got a lot of development in front of them. But I'm really interested to see how Rakestraw develops into both positions, and I haven't heard as much about Terrion playing both positions. He's been primarily on the outside, from what I understand. So talking about the cornerback position and the pass defense, the other side of this coin that everyone's been talking about is defensive end, the pass rush, the outside linebacker, the position that apparently we didn't, address well enough. So the other side of the coin, pass rush and better marrying the pass rush and cover, right? When you can cover, you can rush. When you can rush, you can typically cover better. You can go both ways. The better teams in the NFL right now have better defensive backs than they do defensive ends or pass rushers. The front seven also, have to own the fact that the 27th ranked pass defense was also a result of an inconsistent pass rush that only generated 41 sacks, which tied for 23rd in the NFL last season. Again, I've said it many times. I feel like it's hand in hand. If you have better defensive backs, you're going to get better rush. If you make that quarterback hold on to the ball for just a little bit longer, we've done the math. Danielle Hunter averages like 4.25 seconds per sack, or that might have been his quickest sack or something like that last year. But the average is about 4 seconds per sack. Whereas, these quarterbacks like Jared Goff, they're getting the ball out in under 2.7 seconds. So it doesn't make sense, does it? If you're getting to the quarterback in 4 seconds, but they're getting the ball out in 2.7 seconds, what does that mean? It means that you have to make the quarterback hold the ball. That doesn't mean someone's going to get open if you have good coverage. So as long as we have good coverage, the quarterback can hold the ball a little bit longer. And sometimes all you need is that extra 10th of a second, 20th of a second to get your hands on the quarterback to finally break free through your one-on-one to get to the quarterback. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this this generates more sacks, or not necessarily more sacks. I wouldn't say that sacks define a team's success either. You know, if you're able to get pressure and cover downfield and the quarterback has to throw the ball away every time, that's also very successful. If you don't get the sack because they throw the ball and they avoid the sack, there's nothing wrong with that. You're affecting the game positively. So there's many ways you can affect the game without just getting a sack. So Aiden Hutchinson, Tim 21 goes on to say, he's a stud. He's a Pro Bowler. He led the NFL in quarterback hits, was second in quarterback pressures, but he only notched 11 and a half sacks. What the Lions have to find is more consistent production. The additions of DJ Reader and Marcus Davenport in free agency will help. Getting a healthy James Houston back for the entire year will also be big. Detroit needs big seasons from Aleem McNeil and Josh Pascal. This team offensively is good enough to win the Super Bowl. Defensively, against the run, this team is good enough to win the Super Bowl. If they can significantly improve their pass defense and better marry the pass, rush, and coverage ability, they have the roster and the coaching staff to win a Super Bowl. I tend to agree. What do you got to say?
I wholeheartedly agree with that. But we have to see what we have in players like James Houston and some of these guys that were injured last year. And they did a little something before they got injured, but after they got injured, they really didn't show too much. You know, Houston got back for the last game of the playoffs and really didn't show too much. So was he still injured? Is he 100% now? What's he doing in the offseason? I'd love to see what players like James Houston are doing this offseason. Is he coming in looking like Donovan People-Jones, all swollen up and ready to go? Or is he more lean and mean so he can be faster and get around that corner? Well, let's see what's going to happen.
Love it, man. The last thing I'm going to talk about in here from this article, and then we'll move on to Florio and Caputo, is talking about Terrell Williams joining the Lions for his 27th season in coaching and the 13th in the NFL as the Detroit's run game coordinator and defensive line coach. He is one of the most respected coaches in the league. I feel like this is a move that has ulterior motives, and I've spoken about this before. I feel like the San Francisco 49ers like to pluck certain types of coaches that can move on. They can move on. You know, they develop them, right? They win a lot of games. You win games. You get looked at differently. You move on to, better positions, whether it's offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, head coach, general manager, whatever, right? Williams has that ability. He has that ability to move up. I think he would go directly from this position to potentially a head coaching position, not necessarily a coordinator. I think he would roll right over that and end up on, somebody's list as a head coach if he comes into Detroit and we don't have any let off in the run game, and he makes this team better. And when that happens, the Lions get multiple compensatory picks for 2 seasons in a row. So, I've said this, it's a tough subject to talk about because I hate to use, the fact that, they built this rule into the NFL for minority coaching. And I felt it was like, it's not necessarily not fair or whatever, but like, why, why not for everybody? It just didn't make sense to me, the whole rule. And I feel like certain teams kind of prey upon that rule and that ability to be able to, allow these coaches to move on, and they don't try to retain them as much. I mean, the 49ers have had like 12 compensatory picks from these moves in the last couple of seasons. Last year, not this past draft, but the previous draft, they only had like 3 draft picks to start the season before the draft and ended up with like 12 because of all those moves. So I think it's a little bit nuts. And there's been a lot of, of owners, crying about it, which, complaining about it. Maybe crying's the wrong term. Complaining about it to the NFL that this is getting a little out of control. That they need to rein it in a little bit with how many of these moves are, allowed to be made every single season. And why is only one team seem to be, benefiting from it? It's not really level, So anyway, He goes on to say that I think that he's the best defensive line coach in the league. This is what Dan Campbell said of Williams. I think that he knows how to develop. He's got experience in game planning, and he's going to be beneficial for our guys up front. The Titans allowed the fewest rushing yards per game at 76.9 in 2022 and allowed the lowest rushing average at 4 per carry, the fourth fewest rushing yards, 10,044 in the NFL during Williams' 6-year stint in Tennessee. Proof is there, man. The guy's done it. He's done it at a very high level. And now he's joining a defense that did really well last year up front, right? There's some other things that they have to key in on. I just hope that he doesn't forget about the run and go work on just the pass, defense part of this, the pass rush. No let off from Williams this year. No let off. We have to finish in the top in the run defense again to be able to make teams more one-dimensional and allow our coverage guys to do what they do. So what do you think about Williams in this new move, obviously this offseason, to elevate our team once again?
Yeah, this guy is interesting. I don't know exactly what he's going to bring. Is he going to have our defensive ends staying home per se? When I played football in high school, my coach always said to stay home and seal the outside. If you let someone outside of you and you go crashing in, what's the first thing that running back's going to do? They're going to slip around your right shoulder and off they go to the races. So you have to be able to seal that edge and keep people inside, and then everything else will come to you. The sacks will come, everything will come, just because everything's going to get funneled to you instead of you trying to push the funnel. And I think that's one thing that Aiden started working on at the end of the year. And hopefully this new coach works with him on that kind of stuff. Staying home, doing your assignment, do your job. Don't do somebody else's job. Do your own job. I really like that whole saying, do your job, and if we can still be really good against the run, I think with what we've done with the DBs, with Rakestraw and Arnold and Carlton Davis, that's gonna fix a lot of these problems with the passing game. We're gonna be able to have more of a lockdown passing game and not have so many people doing this 400 yards against us crap. No more CeeDee Lamb going for 275 yards. No more Justin Jefferson going for 190. Maybe we keep them to 100 yards apiece. That would be so fantastic, because we don't need to have the number one lockdown passing defense in the league. We just need to be mid for those guys, because we do have such a great running defense. Because we were top 5 in run defense, weren't we?
Top 2.
Yeah. See, so we just,
if we could bounce from 27 to 15, that would be a huge increase in production.
Yeah.
And, obviously we were missing out on quite a few interceptions last year. And again, not to say that you need interceptions to win ball games, but it definitely helps to win that turnover margin. But I believe that if we can just get into that top 15 conversation and still maintain the top 5 run defense grade, it's going to be a tough defense to shut down. It's going to be a tough defense to win against. Mega Anth had a good question in here. And that's a new name, so welcome in, Mega Anth. If you've been in before and I haven't seen you, I apologize. We got Big Moose 88 in the house. Another new name I haven't seen in here. Who else do we have in here this one? We got Adam. We got Josh Jackson. Chef Talks Lions. Tracy, of course. It sounds like Tracy's about to go hit the beach over at Sleeping Bear Dunes. We got Rick in the house. Who else is in here this morning? Motown. Who was that? Motown Mitch? Who was that? Just saw it. Where'd it go? Decker Pecker's in the house. Where'd you go? Motown Mitch. Yeah, Motown Mitch is in the house. So Mega Ant's question is wondering if we're going to re-sign Carlton Davis or re-sign Carlton Davis, or was that a 1-year rental? And I was on record a couple weeks ago saying that I don't believe that Davis will come back. And the reason why is, I guess there's a few components to this. Number one, we just shelled out $450 million. So when you start spending big money like that on a few players, you're going to live inside the draft and or cheap free agent acquisitions. And I think for that reason, Brad Holmes is going to want to retain that $15 million that he spent on Carlton this year and do something different with it. And I think that's why you've seen, he signed Meek at a good rate for 2 seasons and brought in 2 rookies. So we'll have 3, core, core DBs now moving through this season and next season. Carlton, I feel, will be the odd man out next year. I mean, I don't want him to have a rough season, but if he did have a rough season for whatever reason, and he was able to come back a little bit cheaper, like south of 10 million, then I would say there could be an option. Or if he had a really great season and they say, you know what, we'll kind of give you a Cam Sutton deal, 3 for 30 or 3 for 33, and he would be willing to take that, then I would say that there's a possibility. But right now I'm banking on these rookies to be the future. So I think to answer your question, I think Carlton's odd man out next year. I really do. I don't think that he comes back. And if he does, we'll see what happens with the other extensions that are coming due here, real soon. So we'll see what happens. What do you think, Eric? Do you think that we bring Carlton back?
It all depends on what he does this year. It really does. We don't, we know he's going to be solid, but we don't know if he's going to be this Pro Bowl, take us to the Super Bowl guy. If he's the Pro Bowl, take us to the Super Bowl guy, I don't see how we don't re-sign him if we can get him for a decent number. We're going to be playing this number roulette for a while now because all these bills start coming due next season. Amon-Ra, Penei Sewell, Goff, they're all coming due next season. So we're not going to have as much money to throw around at free agents, which is fine. And because I really believe that Brad Holmes is the draft master and he will get more draft picks and he will get the right people in here.
Yeah, I'm firm on trusting Brad in the draft. I think that, when you look at the roster roulette that I call it, and I know I keep saying this, I'm like a broken record, but he's really lining this team up in a very good situation to have future depth, immediate starters, and future depth behind them to replace them. You bring in a couple of free agents, you back them up with depth pieces that could become starters, whether they're first round, second round, third round picks, whatever they are. He's really lining this team up to be successful and sustainable for the future. And that's the one thing that I think some fans overlook is, let's just be honest. We all have some sort of a immediate gratification in us, right? That we kind of lean towards now. I want it now. I got to have it now, right? And it just doesn't work that way with successful football teams. You can't just have everything right now. It is a slow process. And by slow, every year you're supposed to get a little bit better. I said that it was going to take 4 seasons for us to finally get the roster that we deserved and that we needed, that Brad Holmes could filter out all of the roster from 2021 or 2020 and get his players on this team and retain the guys like a Taylor Decker, right? The Frank Ragnows, retain the guys that made sense. And we retained, the offensive line pieces. And outside of that, we didn't retain much else, right? So obviously Tracy Walker was let go this year. He was part of the old regime and part of the old roster. It was going to take 4 seasons because even if you give us the minimum amount of draft picks, 7 per season, that's 28 new players. That is a full set of starters on offense, defense, and special teams. Not that you would draft that way, not that you would draft, 11 offense, 11 defense, and 3 special teams, in 4 seasons. You're going to draft, for what you need, but we know Brad Holmes drafts best player available. So that makes that process even a little bit slower because you're not getting the immediate gratification, whether it's a free agent or a draft pick, you're drafting to make your team better. And that's exactly what Brad Holmes has done. If you see anything else in the chat this morning, Eric, just let me know and we'll roll with it. We'll try to keep it on topic.
Yeah. So I got a little one here. Adam says the key to this defense, in my opinion, is Jack Campbell. If he plays like a Pro Bowler, like it could, really transform the defense. So Jack Campbell is my breakout player for season 2 this year. I
Nice.
really believe that Jack Campbell is going to be that player that takes the next step, that needed a year to get his feet under him. Like I said earlier, Aiden Hutchinson had to go over, grab him by the shoulder pads, and move him into position because he just didn't know where he was on the field. He was learning, and they threw him into the fire right away. I really think he needed to be seasoned a little bit and get his feet under him. He didn't have that person to take him under their wing. Maybe it was Anzalone, but he's playing a little bit different of a position. And I think they really want him to be that rushing outside linebacker, kind of like Micah Parsons kind of deal. Wouldn't that be fun to see?
Yeah, it'd be fun to see, but he's definitely going to be our middle linebacker. I mean, that's where they've had him. He does have really good lateral agility and ability. He can move sideline to sideline, and that was really evident last year. But man, Anzalone flies as an outside linebacker. I mean, he really does. He really gets to the outside quick, takes great angles, which Jack Campbell takes really great angles too. I'm looking forward to seeing Jack Campbell rush the middle. That's what I'm looking for. I really love the fact that at Iowa, I mean, he was used in so many different ways that he does have a lot of versatility. They're going to key in what he can do this year. And now with this defensive line being as strong as it should be on paper, I think that we're going to see more Jack Campbell up the middle, sacking the quarterback, which, man, that would be a breath of fresh air to finally not have to leverage the outside containment zones and send him through the middle. I think that would just be fun to watch for once. I mean, we haven't had a really good middle linebacker in a long time, and it would just be fun to watch for once. So Pat Caputo, Mike Florio, the question has been raised. Did the Lions move too quickly to get Jared Goff's contract done? I'm going to say immediately no, but let's listen to what this article has to say. And, Pat Caputo and Mike Florio took some hardline stances in here that I don't agree with. So let's talk about it. So article by Brad Behrman here says, among the big contracts the Detroit Lions have done this offseason, the new deal for Jared Goff was naturally a little bit more complicated, and thus it was the last of the three to be done. As the quarterback market continually rises, the team surely wanted to get a deal done sooner, while Goff's side may have been willing to wait for another contract chip to fall. What they're saying there is if, another, player would have gotten a contract and it would have been $58 million a year. Well, that just sent Jared Goff's contract way north, right? So trying to get it done as quickly as possible, I think was the right thing to do. The numbers don't scare me like they do other people. I think that, it's something that you're going to have to live with. And it's just the way that the market's going. Are we going to see something similar happen to quarterbacks that happen to running backs, where it's been said there's been mass collusion with a running back position and the owners got together and kind of said, yep, we're not paying these guys. They're too expensive. I hope that that's not the case, but I also feel like some of these contracts are getting a little bit insane, like really insane. They put the collective bargaining agreement together for a reason, for these rookie deals, giving them guaranteed money, at least making their lives a little bit easier. It helped, and it helped and it affected the salary cap every year. I mean, back when Stafford was a rookie, I mean, he got a massive deal, right? And a lot of those deals burned teams because they would spend big money and that player would be a bust. And that's when we really started talking about bust. You don't really talk about them as much anymore because the contracts aren't as big as what they used to be. What they're getting now over the first 4 or 5 seasons used to be what they would get almost in their first season as a rookie, many years ago. So here we are now talking about Goff being the second highest paid quarterback in the NFL with an APY of $53 million per year. And in his press conference on Thursday, he made it very clear that he wanted security, including a no trade clause that was also revealed. I did a video on it. Obviously, the video didn't work, so it's all audio. I apologize for it. Again, I'm working the kinks out. I don't know what's changed or why Streamlabs is just terrible. And I hope they're watching this right now because it's absolutely terrible what you're doing to my videos. But anyway, he wanted more than to fully maximize his dollars. He obviously got a $73 million signing bonus, which is the largest signing bonus ever in the history of the NFL for a quarterback. So it always felt inevitable. Brad says that the Lions and Goff would get a contract extension done before the season started, and perhaps well before the season started. The team theoretically could have let him play out the final year of his now old deal, right? And then franchise tagged him in 2025. And this is where I feel like it kind of goes off the rails. Talking about, did the Lions move too quickly? So according to Pat Caputo, there's a solid case that that the reward of signing Goff long-term outweighs any risk for the Lions. All right. But Pat Caputo of 97.1 The Ticket has taken the opposite stance, tactfully, but took the opposite stance, suggesting that while it made sense for the Lions to invest in the certainty of Jared Goff in the quarterback position for the future, there is risk. And his quote is this: "It's unwise to confuse that aspect of Goff's extension with the risk involved. It's considerable, and it's possible that the Lions will ultimately regret not waiting until after this season to do it." Now, Brad Behrman goes on to say that waiting until after the season to extend Goff could have invited a holdout, though the current rules make training camp holdouts less likely. But he could have not shown up for the next phase of OTAs, which starts next week, making it a little harder for the Lions to have meaningful, voluntary off-season workouts. So before I get to Mike Florio, do you think for any possibility that Jared Goff would have ever held out?
No.
If he wasn't re-signed?
No. He's not.
I don't think so either.
He's not that kind of guy.
Well, we would like to think that, right? I mean, I know I keep saying this over and over and over again, but you have the agent, the team, the agent, the player, and really the conversations between the team and the agent. So if your agent says, "Hey, buddy, I need you to sit out," I'm sure there's big conversations that happen there. Maybe Jared, has enough weight to throw around to say, "Yeah, no, I'm not doing that to my guys." And I wouldn't expect that from Jared either. I really wouldn't. I think that this team and this city means way too much to him right now. And he's got unfinished business in front of him. He wants to prove the world wrong. And I think he will. He will get his Super Bowl ring in Detroit. And it's not if, I believe it's when. And I think it's going to be sooner rather than longer. I don't understand this stance from Caputo that there was too much risk in letting him play throughout this season and then inviting the franchise tag. I mean, that, in my opinion, would have obviously invited a holdout situation, or could have, above anything else, right? But at the same time, why would you want to go through a whole nother season with all of these other quarterback contracts getting done? You just massively raised the price. Come on, Caputo. I mean, you're smarter than that, right? Am I wrong here?
No. And I have an even different view than them or you. I was clamoring for Brad Holmes to re-sign Goff last offseason. I wanted it done last year with a 3-year extension at 40 to 47 million, where we would have got him even cheaper had we done it last year. But I don't think they had the faith in him quite yet, because he hadn't taken us to the NFC Championship game just quite yet. But because we went to the NFC Championship game, it cost us even more. It would have been so much cheaper to re-sign him to a record-setting deal last offseason, in my opinion.
Yeah, I hear you. And I was on board for an extension last year too. I don't think that it would have happened. Obviously it didn't. I was totally on board with, the way that he finished the season. Now, I think a lot of fans were probably still kind of in the middle. Okay, we went 9-8. We had a hell of a run at the end of the season. We're riding a high right now. We've won like 21 of the last, 23 games or whatever it was, right? Starting this last season. At that point, I feel like fans are like, okay, this is our guy. He's doing great things for this team, this city, this organization. He's just a kind of a cool, calm, collected, individual. Here's a question. Is Jared Goff getting paid this giant contract for what he's done or what he will do?
Both.
So you think that there's some validity, or it matters that the games that he's won,
yes,
are part of the equation here?
Oh, yes, for sure. Because I think this was more of a, you need to prove it first before we give you an extension. I'm sure he was clamoring for an extension last off season. And in my opinion, he should have gotten it. I think we just didn't trust him enough yet, because the 9-8 season, he did start out 1-6. The year before, we went 3-13-1. And I don't know if it's so much fans, but Brad Holmes and Spielman, I'm sure they sat down after that season, after we went 9-8, and were like, we might want to get this done. We might want to start talking to this kid. And I'm sure they did. They just couldn't get it done. And they stopped talking about it once the season started. But I really believed that getting it done early would have saved us so much money. And I think the risk was worth the reward because of what he was going to do. And now it's what he did instead of what he's going to do.
Yeah, I feel it's kind of a little bit of both. I think he was rewarded for obviously getting this giant monkey off of our backs. 32 years, not making an NFC title game, never winning a home playoff game in my lifetime, and winning 2 playoff games and making it to the NFC title. I mean, 17 minutes away from, or 30 minutes away from a Super Bowl, and he put us in the best position possible. The defense failed us, in my opinion. I mean, I know that there was a lot that went on in that game, but if I were to put a meter up that said, offense, Dan Campbell, defense, I would say that meter is going to be between Dan Campbell and the defense for kind of how that game finished. So shout out to Big Moose 88, says the fact that Jared Goff, I'm going to interject his name, didn't want top quarterback pay and settled for $53 million a year and only $170 million guaranteed is a better team friendly contract. So if I understand what you're saying there, the fact that they didn't break the bank, that they didn't beat Joe Burrow's, I mean, they broke the bank, but that they didn't beat Joe Burrow's contract speaks a little bit more to Jared Goff as the human side, right? The individual, the team guy that says, I don't need the most money. Yes, I want to be rewarded. Yes, I deserve a big contract, but no, it doesn't have to be 56 million. It doesn't have to be 57 million. Just get me close. I think that I would agree with that. I do. And I mean, he got a handsome reward as far as guarantees, and in the overall guarantee with all the escalators, he really did a bang up job in this contract. And the way it's laid out, the third year of this contract is where a lot of the money comes out. I mean, it's like 66 million or something like that's coming out in the third season. His cap hit next year is actually not that bad. So Lions did some smart stuff here. They really set up. I mean, I went through in the video yesterday. Matter of fact, let me see if I still have the slide. I do. So when you look at 2025 to 24, his contract really didn't change. He's got about 32.2 million that he's going to cash in this year. A lot of it obviously is a prorated signing bonus at 19.6 million that'll be attributed to the cap. 2025 base salary of 18, his cap number is only 32.6. So this year and next year, his cap hasn't changed, really. Hasn't been touched. It's still that now 26, it doubles 69.6. And then in 27, it actually comes down 54.6. And I guarantee you by 2027, the majority of NFL contracts for the top 10 quarterbacks in the league are going to be north of 60 million. Guaranteed. Maybe north of 65 million by then. So the fact that he could be, 10, 12, 15% less than the top contracts in the league by 2027, I think it speaks volumes to how great this contract really is. And then looking at 24 and 25, you're paying a top 5 quarterback $33 million a year when you've got all of these other top 10 quarterbacks making 55, 53, 50, 52, 47, 48, whatever, 45. Incredible deal for the Detroit Lions. And then if you look at it even deeper, we're going to have some extensions next year that are going to get done. I think that's exactly why you see that contract number be what it is for 2025. We're going to expect more extensions getting done in 2025. And that could be Aiden Hutchinson, could be Aleem McNeil. It could be, if Taylor Decker doesn't get an extension done this year, it could be Taylor Decker. So excellent job by the Detroit Lions. Before I move on to Mike Florio, anything else you see in the chat or anything else you want to share?
No, we're good.
Okay, good. All right. So Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, has lightly, and I don't think he does anything lightly, questioned the timing of the Goff deal. Not once, but a couple of times. Most recently, he provided a bit of insight beyond his own thoughts. And here's what he had to say. He said, and here's the real question that some in league circles have been asking. What league circles, Florio? Come on. Who were the Lions negotiating against in giving Goff such a major deal? As one league source put it, Goff is the epitome of a team bidding against themselves. I really don't understand this statement. So are they saying that the Lions, he did say the Lions were bidding against themselves to give Goff a contract? Are they not bidding against all of the other teams? I don't understand this level of thinking here. He goes on to say the Lions could have let it ride. They would have tagged Goff in 2025. They could have let him go to the market and see if someone would have offered him anything close to what the Lions are paying, more than $47 million per year on a 5-year contract with a practical guarantee at signing of more than $148 million. So, Florio, look, dude, you don't let your star quarterback hit the market. You just cut yourself off at the knees at that point. You let your quarterback hit the market. If he comes out and bangs it away again this season, my goodness, if we win a Super Bowl this year and Goff wasn't signed, imagine what that contract would have been. So Florio's thinking is you let this guy walk and go to the market. Yep, you hang the franchise tag over him, but you let him go to the market. So what? So they can drive the numbers up? I'm sorry that everyone just pissed in your Cheerios, Florio, because the Lions are not going to relinquish the NFC North to the Vikings at any point in time. So I think that's where a lot of this comes from. He's just a Lions hater. He's a Goff hater. The fact that he's been wrong about Goff all of these years, it's just been thrown in his face, and he can't stand it. So I don't agree. I absolutely don't agree. What do you got to say?
Goff is a top 5 quarterback. I don't care what anyone says. Go look at the stats. Go look at the wins. Who's got the most wins over the last 2 seasons for quarterbacks? Who's in the top 5? Goff is in the top 5 of wins. He's in the top 5 for passing yards, touchdowns, you name it. He is a top 5 quarterback. I don't care what anyone says. Goff is a top 5 quarterback. And I have never seen a top 5 quarterback hit the free agency market and not have tons of suitors. He would have had so many offers. How many teams would take Goff over who they currently have right now? More than half the league. More than half.
I would say that there's 16 teams out there that you could probably make an argument for.
Yeah. Oh, thanks to Adam for the super chat. $1.99. Florio hates all NFC North teams due to his bias. Yeah, I can take that.
It's weird, isn't it? I mean, he's a known Vikings fan, but he's kind of all over the map. I mean, I do enjoy listening to some of his stuff. Chris Sims is kind of hard to listen to at times, but they do have some good topics. If anything, it gives me a little bit more energy of what not to say, or gives me some topics of what to say. I hate the detractors that they put out there, right? And the fact that they always talk so negatively about the Lions or Jared Goff, and I think it comes from a place of being butthurt that the Lions are building the team the right way and doing the right things. And again, when you look at that contract, I'm going to show it one more time. Look at how smart this was put together. Now, I know you got some big numbers in here, right? But again, $32.2 million in 24, $32.6 million in 25, and then it doubles in 26. So you're going to let the cap go from 255 this year to probably 280, 285 next year. And then from 285 in 25 to probably 310 potentially in 26. So between now and 2026, you're going to add almost 50 to 60 million in cap space. That covers Jared Goff's contract by 2026. So we're not losing, right? We're gaining, and it's just kind of filtering itself out. I love it, man. I absolutely love it. I think it's a great deal. I think it's very smartly put together. I think that, Jared Goff obviously wants to win. And by putting that contract together, right, as they did, in keeping his cap hit kind of the same for the next 2 seasons, shows us that they're in win now mode. They want to retain as much cap as they can to give Goff what he needs, to give this defense what it needs, and AG what it needs, so we can go win the darn Lombardi. Which is next, man. I mean, that's next on the list, is win the NFC Championship game, make it to the Super Bowl. That's what's next. Does it mean that it has to happen in 24? It doesn't. Would it mean that this season is a complete loss if it doesn't happen? Absolutely not. It doesn't. I feel like it's very difficult to even make it to the playoffs, let alone make it all the way to the NFC title game. But if we can win home field advantage, you can't keep us out of that conversation. Every season. It's very tough now to win. They should have never allowed the gates to be opened at Ford Field. You know what I mean? Now that we've got a taste of what it is, it's like sugar, man. You just want more and more and more and more. All right. Anything you want to add to any of this? We'll move on to the next subject here.
Yeah, just to touch on that, those 2 home playoff games at Ford Field were so nuts. We went to the NFC Championship game, and that game didn't have half the feel that the other 2 games had. But, okay, so to get back into the chat just a little bit, Derek W. put, are we getting the Cam Sutton salary back? If not, the NFL needs to change that. I do believe that we get some of it back on June 1st. I don't know how much of it we get back, but I do believe that we get some of it back on June 1st. And that's why I really thought that the Goff contract was going to happen post June 1st. And one other thing to think about. So people keep talking about how big of a cap hit Goff's contract's going to be. But these people aren't figuring in that I think the cap is going to go up by a much larger percentage than people think. Because now you have companies such as Netflix buying the Christmas games, and they plan on doing Christmas every year. So for the next 3 years, Netflix, you're going to have Netflix to watch the Christmas games. And that's big money. And the NFL is going a la carte. They're starting to sell Thursday games. They're starting to sell playoff games. The next thing you know, it's going to cost you $100 to watch the Super Bowl. You watch. It's going to be a la carte. You're going to have to buy everything streaming service. It's happening. And what's going to happen when that happens? The cap's going to go up because they're going to make more money.
Yeah, I think that there could be an argument for that. I mean, they do have a share of revenue, obviously, with all the ads and, everything else. So, I mean, I could see I just base the cap on 10%. I kind of go with the averages, the league averages. This year was the largest cap increase we've had ever.
Yep.
It was a record. So, and I think it was only 13% if the number rings a bell, but 10% is the number I kind of stick with as a guiding light into the cap every year. That way, at least I know we're close. We have not seen a regression of the cap.
Except
I
for
think
COVID
in
year.
more than a decade. I think that
COVID year it did. It went down, and then they had to borrow against it, so everyone could still maintain the money. And then for a couple seasons, it took for them to get back to the normal increase, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember the cap going down. I don't know. We'll come back on that. We'll get some more information on that. But I don't remember the cap coming down. I think that there was some other things that had happened, but I don't remember it going down.
COVID. Yeah,
I think it stayed the same.
Yeah, it didn't go up.
It didn't go up. It stayed the same, is what I'm thinking happened.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next up, Lions favored to win. This is exciting. For once, the Lions are finally favored in the majority of games. At the outset of the NFL schedule release on the 15th, of course, DraftKings, among other betting sites, have kind of put out their preseason expectations for these games. And right now, the Lions are favored in 13 of their 17 games for this season. Under Dan Campbell, the Lions are 36-17 against the spread, which is the best record in the NFL during that span since 2021. DraftKings Sportsbook has set the win total for the Lions at 10.5 for the 2024 season. I think that we can all agree that 10.5 is not going to cut it. Let me look at something. Anything you want to add to that while I'm looking something up?
Just that there's only one team that is favored in all of their games, and that is San Francisco, which I find very strange. I don't see San Francisco. I don't know if they did enough in the offseason to keep it going at the pace they were going on.
So the Lions being 36-17 against the spread, that comes down to a win percentage of right around 68% of the time. So if you've got 53 games there and you've won 36 of them, you've won 68% of the games, right? And if DraftKings has put a total win of 10.5, but I use this percentage of 68%, that equals 11.5 wins for the Lions this season, which kind of puts us right back to where we were at 12-5 last year. I think that the Lions are going to at least one up what we did last year. I think when we went through our preseason schedule, wins and losses the other night. Of course, you went 15-2.
Yeah.
And I had the Lions, what I feel a little bit more realistic, at 14-3. And when we ended the season, Super Bowl, I put out some stuff. I predicted some things that happened in the Super Bowl, which was the field goal and who was going to win. And I got it all right. And I also put in that same post, Lions are going to go 14-3, win the NFC North, first seed or number one seed in the playoffs for the NFC in 2024. Dare I say, that's where I ended up again this year, is at 14-3 after the schedule release. That's where I'm at, Eric. I think 14-3 is it. I think that gets us everything that we need to be successful in the playoffs. And it's really hard for me to find losses when the Lions only play outdoors, 3 times the whole season?
Yeah, and only once in cold weather.
Right. I think they're only playing outdoors 3 times this entire season.
Yep. At Chicago, at the Packers, at the Texans.
Well, we've also got at San Francisco, which is outside, but it's nice weather.
Nice.
Yeah. So I guess we're outside 4 times. Where else are we at?
Well, let's see.
Now I've got to look.
at Arizona, at Dallas, at Minnesota, at Green Bay, at Houston, at Indy, at Chicago.
No, how many are outdoors?
And at Minnesota. Yeah. So, yep. So there's only 4 outdoors because Arizona is inside. That's a dome. Dallas is inside. Minnesota's inside.
So we know the Packers, the
Yep.
Bears.
Yep.
Are we away at the Bucks?
Nope. We're home.
Okay. So then you've got San Fran. That's 3.
Yep. And the Texans.
And the Texans is outdoors?
Yep.
Thought that they had a dome. So 4 games outside, 1 in cold weather. I love our chances. I really love our chances. We know that Goff stats, excuse me.
Oh,
we know that Goff stats are extremely high when indoors compared to outside.
Houston has a retractable dome.
Oh, so it could be either or.
Yeah.
Depending on the weather. I love the chances because the fact that we're indoors means that, Goff plays better for whatever reason. And in nice weather, he plays better. I thought that we've had one of our best games efficiency wise against the 49ers. Like we were very efficient during that first half. And the fact that we just got up and marched right down the field on grass, open air, beautiful night. Probably one of the most beautiful games I've ever gone to, outside. And then watching it kind of come under the lights as we ended the night, the horizon with the sun, the way it was setting. It was just a beautiful setup for a game and one that we have to win this year. We have to. It's a game that we cannot lose. So anyway, Lions are favored 13 out of 17 games. What are your predictions in the chat? And then do us a favor, please like this stream so that we can get this information out to more people and share this stream if you would be so kind on your social media and subscribe. If you guys haven't subscribed to this channel, I know I don't ask a lot, but you guys are truly the best sponsors and supporters that any person could ever ask for. You guys always show up. You always do a great job in the chat, and I certainly appreciate it. I give a lot of stuff back to people. I've given over 62 prizes away since I started just over a year ago. And I do that because you guys mean a lot. You mean a lot to this channel. You mean a lot as Lions fans. And we want to give back. That's what this channel is all about. So do us a kind favor and subscribe if you haven't. Obviously, that's the only way that you can win, any of the giveaways. And once we get to 5,000, we're going to be giving away our first mini helmet that will be signed either by Chris Spielman or Penei Sewell. So please help us get to 5,000, and then we're going to start kicking off giveaways every 500 all season long. I have 24 mini helmets. That matter of fact, I got a call on today, but they're all signed by Penei Sewell and Chris Spielman with certificates of authenticity valued over $100 each. So nice little giveaway we got going for the whole season. So anything else we want to talk about today outside of the hot take, which is, are there any players on the roster right now that have been Brad Holmes draft picks that may not make the roster? What do you think?
I didn't know it had to be a draft pick.
Oh, it can be anybody. It can be anybody.
Okay. Yeah, the one that I think doesn't make the roster this year is Emmanuel Mosley. And I think it's just because he's a little behind the 8 ball, having one knee done, and now the second one, I just can't trust it. I saw him for 2 plays. So until he can prove it to the Lions, and I think it's going to be a bloodbath. I think there's just too much in front of him this year to actually make the roster.
So you think it's Emmanuel Mosley?
Yeah. That would be my one that I would pick to not make the 53.
All right, let me look at the Lions depth chart real quick, which obviously has not been updated. Not the way that I want to see it. So let me go to the R Lads depth chart because they usually have everything. Okay, so if we're looking, we'll start with receivers. You got Jamison Williams, Khalif Raymond, Amon-Ra St. Brown listed as 1, 2, 3. You have Antoine Green, Peoples-Jones, and Tom Kennedy listed as 4, 5, 6. Then you have Darius Fountain, Maurice Alexander, Isaiah Williams, as 789. So right now we have 12 wide receivers on this roster with Traquan Smith, Caden Davis, and Jalon Calhoun rounding out the tree here. That might be the most wide receivers I have ever seen on our depth chart before training camp. If I were to take a wild shot here, I would say that Jameson, this is pre-OTAs, right? Pre-training camp, haven't seen a snap from these guys. Jameson Williams, Khalif Raymond, Amon-Ra St. Brown, fairly locked in, right? Khalif Raymond, I can't imagine the Lions moving off of him this year, but there's that potential that, someone could always get beat out. They might want to go with someone a little bit taller, but you know what? He's utilized way too often in special teams for the Lions, in my opinion, to not retain him for the last year of his contract. Antoine Green, I'm pretty positive he's going to have a pretty solid season for a second-year receiver, 7th-round pick that is, behind on the depth chart a little bit. Peoples-Jones, he's on the team, in my opinion. Tom Kennedy, I think, does Tom Kennedy things. He'll do great in preseason. If he makes it that far, he won't make the roster, in my opinion. Isaiah Williams is my outside dark horse to make this roster as a wide receiver. And then beyond him, you have Traquan Smith. I don't know enough about Traquan Smith. He's kind of been, the guy that's been shoved down the depth chart, but I like his length and his size and his ability. So if the Lions were to keep 4, 5, 6, 7 wide receivers is doubtful. I think 6 is the max that they're going to keep this year. But because of the fact that we really don't have that bona fide number 2, Jameson Williams has not stepped into that role just yet. He has not proven yet that he can do it. The Lions may opt to keep an extra wide receiver this year. So for that reason, I'm going to go with the Lions keeping 6 wide receivers. And then obviously we're going to tack on, 2 to 3 on the practice squad. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And I'll put in my picks later, but then when you move on to left tackle, obviously Taylor Decker, Dan Skipper are on this roster. Left guard, Graham Glasgow, Coyote Abelsika, they're on this roster. At center, Frank Ragnow. And then we have 1, 2, 3. We have 4 more centers behind him. I have never seen that many centers on our roster. So Frank Ragnow is clearly on the roster. Do we have room to add a second center? With Graham Glasgow being on the roster, I would say no. I think that what we're looking for is some practice squad guys and guys that can, work in and play guard. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Frank the Tank is the only center that makes the roster. And then right guard, you got Kevin Zeitler, Kobe Sorsdahl, Christian Mahogany. I think they make the roster. Then right tackle, you've got Giovanni Manu and Panay Sewell that they make the roster. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 10 offensive linemen. As we're last season, the Lions only kept 8, which I thought was kind of odd that we kept way more defensive linemen than we did offensive linemen for the first season under, Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes' leadership. Practice squad, I see, 2 to 3 guys here probably making practice squad. Tight end. This is where I have a problem. This is where I see a potential guy that may not make this roster. We've seen a lot of action, even lately, with Brad Holmes bringing in more tight ends. So you got Sam Laporta, Brock Wright, James Mitchell, Shane Zielstra, Sean McKeon, and Parker Hess or Hees. Sean McKeon was just added yesterday, I believe. And obviously Sam Laporta, Brock Wright are locks. I mean, Brock is locked up for the next 3 seasons, but it gets dicey behind those 2. And James Mitchell has not proven anything yet. And Shane Zielstra is coming off a nasty injury. For some reason, and we just let Isaac go, Rex Isaac or Isaac Rex. We just let him go, which I really thought that, he could have potentially had an opportunity, but He obviously didn't do enough in rookie minicamp. Parker Hess and Sean McKeon are going to fight for a spot. That's what I'm seeing is going to happen. I have a really odd feeling about James Mitchell this year. And I don't know why, but I think that James Mitchell or Shane Zielstra, one or both, do not make this roster.
Oh, that's a lock.
Do you think that's a lock?
Yeah, that one of them won't make the roster.
Well, I mean, we've kept 4 tight ends before, but I have a feeling that James Mitchell just has not shown enough. Even though he was a Brad Holmes draft pick, he just has not shown enough, to prove that he belongs on this roster, especially with, the guys that we're bringing in that have some experience as well. And in the run game, Parker Hess and Sean McKeon both are great blockers downfield.
They're big dudes too.
Yeah. And I see your comment, BP, that 4 tight ends is too many. But see, the problem is we use a lot of jumbo packages. And we do a lot of outside zone. We bring in, extra offensive linemen or extra tight ends. We've had 3 tight ends on the field during some plays. So I feel like it's going to go one way or the other. We're either going to have an extra tight end versus last year or more offensive linemen. I guess if I were to hedge a bet, I would say it would be offensive linemen because they're much harder to find really good offensive linemen, especially when, as far as tight ends, we really just need blocking tight ends, and Sam Laporte is our pass catcher. So I see that James Mitchell and Shane Zielstra potentially have an issue here. But I'm going to go tight end 3 for right now. And practice squad, we're gonna probably put 2 guys there. Potentially.
You think if Mitchell gets released and they try to bring him back on the practice squad, does he get picked up by someone else?
He might get picked up by somebody else. If you remember, I think he was battling injury when he came in.
Yeah. He had just come off an ACL.
Yeah. He just hasn't turned the corner yet. Maybe this is the season he finally turns the corner, but last year we really needed his help because, Sam Laporta went down. We didn't know if he was going to come back and play in the game. And James Mitchell went down, same game. So hand injury, just has not proven to be able to stay on the field. Quarterback, you've got Jared Goff, Hendon Hooker, Nate Sudfeld. Where's the other guys? Where's the other guys already get released?
I don't think so.
They're not listed,
aren't they?
They're not listed. But you had Cade Peterson and who else? Do you remember?
Kid from
Cade Peterson, Theo Day.
Theo Day, yeah, that's the other one.
I don't know if they were. I don't think they were signed.
Oh, they were just 2 tryout players then.
Yeah, I don't think that they were signed. So obviously, you've got Jared Goff, Hendon Hooker. They're locks at this point. No, Hendon Hooker is not trade bait. I feel like the Lions need and want to have a very good, solid, capable backup. No, I don't believe Nate Sudfeld is ever going to push Hendon Hooker. I'm very surprised that Nate Sudfeld's even on this roster, but for somebody that is a practice squad guy, I think that that's going to be Nate's job this year. Nate does a really good job with Jared Goff, like working together, getting the game plan down, talking to him during the game about what's going on. Nate has always done an excellent job in communication with Jared Goff. There's been many articles written by multiple different people that have explained that situation, and Nate does an excellent job with that. So I think for that reason, he still makes this team, as a practice squad. It's just that new rule means you can elevate, but it doesn't give you an extra roster spot. At some point, I wish that the NFL would just add a couple of extra guys. Why not be able to have 55 guys instead of 53? Be able to dress 50 guys instead of, 48 or whatever the number is. Running back, you've got David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sion Vaki, Craig Reynolds, Jamar Jefferson, Jake Funk, Zonovan Knight. Cion Vaki makes this roster. Those are your top 3 running backs this season. Craig Reynolds is my other hot take for Friday, that Craig Reynolds may be displaced from the Lions this year.
Yeah, I saw an AI article that it predicted that Cion Vaki was going to take that number 3 spot, and he was going to have like 600 yards this year, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, it's out there.
Yeah. So I don't believe that one bit. I believe in Cion Vaki's ability, but I think that they would probably utilize him more as a pass catcher than in a punt returner or kick returner than anything else before they, feed him the rock. If we had injuries, then yeah, I mean, I get it. If we have injuries and he gets more PT, then sure. But so as far as practice squad, look, I think the Lions are going to try to keep 2. But I think we got 3 on the roster. Practice squad, I think we keep 2. I think Craig Reynolds, definitely, the Lions try to bring him back if, in fact, he does not make the roster. And no, Craig, this is not an indictment on you, I do like his playing style. I love everything about what he does. That block that he had last season will never be forgotten. He sent Carlton Davis into the upper deck, But Zonovan Knight, look, I had high hopes for him last year. He was my dark horse last year to make the roster, or at least, be on this roster somehow. And it's really unfortunate that, he had that nasty injury. But I plan to see Zonovan Knight, back on the practice squad. It's funny that we still see Jamar Jefferson flying around and Jake Funk, but those guys definitely don't make this team. On the defensive side of the ball, so we got wide receivers, O-line, tight end, quarterback, running back. Those are all set. Defensive side of the ball, you have Marcus Davenport, John Kaminsky, Matthew Betts, Isaac Ukwu. Shout out to, someone bought coffee. I can't see the name just yet. Marcus Davenport, John Kaminsky, Matthew Betts, Isaac Ukwu, left defensive end. Clearly, I think that all 3 of them, minus Isaac Ukwu, make this roster. What do you think about Kaminsky and Matthew Betts?
One of them might have to go. And which one, I don't know. Kaminsky, he had the really good season. Then last year was a letdown. So Kaminsky, I don't think is going to have 2 bad seasons in a row. It's going to be really, really difficult. And Betts is going to have one hell of a time trying to make this roster. You talk about a bloodbath. I think defensive end is going to be an absolute bloodbath when it comes to who's going to make it and who isn't. Because you're going to have Davenport, you're going to have Betts, you're going to have Kaminsky, all trying for that spot.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions definitely utilized a heavy rotation last year. If you remember, we kept 12 defensive linemen last year, 12, which was insane to me.
That's crazy.
So if we run through it right now, I'm going to keep 3 on the right side of the defense. So Marcus Davenport, John Kaminsky, and Matthew Betts. I think that those are my 3, and those are considered left side of the defense when you look from the offensive side standpoint. So you got Davenport, Kaminsky, and Betts. And then nose tackle, which they don't have nose tackles or defensive tackles. And DJ Reader, Broderick Martin, Kyle Pico. Kyle Pico piques my interest, to be honest with you. Coming from Tennessee, obviously Williams has a relationship with him. I think that there's some interest here to see him be part of this roster to help the defensive line ingest what Williams is trying to get them to do, and he can be a leader from for that matter. I mean, he really can help these guys kind of get over the hump of anything that Williams is trying to install. I'm going to go ahead and say all 3 of them make the roster: Reader, Broderick, and Pico. Sure. So for your defensive tackle number 1 spot, you've got 3. Defensive tackle number 2 spot, which is Lee McNeil's side. You got Lee McNeil, Mekhi Wingo, Chris Smith, Levi Onwuzurike. This is where I have another hard time with a Brad Holmes draft pick. If Levi Onwuzurike does not come out of the box blowing guys up this summer, I think that Levi Onwuzurike is on the bubble. I think that the Lions would rather keep Mekhi Wingo as a 6th round pick than they would Levi Onwuzurike, who's had nothing but issues staying on the field. I loved what Levi did his first season. He really surprised us with his talent. I really believe that there's a potential that, again, this could be the third guy that doesn't make the roster that you think is a lock. So Ali McNeil, Mekhi Wingo, I'm going to put them in as defensive tackle number 2 spot there on the right side. And I've got Levi Onwuzurike on the outside looking in. What do you think about the defensive tackle position?
Yeah, I really think you're going to start seeing some Brad Holmes previous draft picks that just aren't going to make the team. They're just not going to cut the snuff anymore. At some point, your newer prospects are going to force out your older guys. And this is year 4 for Brad Holmes. This is his 4th draft. It's about time that some of the old guard start getting pushed out, especially guys like Levi, because he's been so injured and just hasn't been able to stay healthy and be on the field.
Well, I think, it's not so much an indictment on these guys, but when you look at all of these, defensive tackles that they've been bringing in, and, guys that are kind of on, not necessarily on the bubble, but they're kind of tweeners too. They can play inside, outside. I think that Brad Holmes is looking at this critically and saying, okay, we've given this guy 3 seasons and he just has not given us enough of a reason to rest our hat on his position this year. We've got to give him some more competition. We really have to see, is he going to, or get off the pot and stay healthy? And of course, once you get out of training camp and get out of preseason, anything can happen. I mean, week 1, you could be injured and go down. And I think for that reason, the Lions are really trying to get a good look at a lot of options to have some backup options, just in case some of that stuff does happen and these guys kind of just bounce around the league a little bit. Levi's he's an injury risk right now. And I know that Brad Holmes loves injured guys, but at some point you have to be able to cut bait and just move on and keep the guys that are healthy and the guys that are playing and the guys that show up every day. The guys that are out of the training room consistently and on the field, I hope that happens this year, because this is the year that we're going to need everybody healthy. Right defensive end, Aiden Hutchinson, Josh Paschal, James Houston, Mitchell Agudi, Nate Lynn. I see 3 here. Obviously Aiden Hutchinson, Josh Paschal, James Houston. Now James is kind of a outside linebacker too, so it really depends on where they slot him. Is he going to be considered an outside linebacker and have to eat up a spot there, or is he going to be considered defensive line and eat up a spot there? So overall in the defensive line, I have 11 guys, where last season the Lions had 12. I will say that they will keep an extra defensive end and an extra defensive tackle on the practice squad. Might even see 2 guys there. 2 for each position, if possible, if we can bring some other guys in that have been cut from other teams. Linebacker. This is the position that I felt needed to be more addressed this offseason. Like, I really felt that we needed that 6th guy, that we just don't have, in this linebacker room. But you've got Alex Anzalone, Jalen Reese-Maben. We know those guys aren't going anywhere. Then you got Malcolm Rodriguez and Deron Gilbert. Malcolm is too valuable. I don't like the fact that his numbers have been cut as far as snaps, but I think that you got Alex, Jalen, and Malcolm that are all going to make this squad at the will linebacker position. Middle linebacker, you have Jack Campbell, Derek Barnes, Steele, Chambers. And yes, I'm throwing all 3 in there. I think that Steele, Chambers, has an outside chance of making this roster. He's a little bit light. He definitely needs to add a little bit of weight. He might end up as a practice squad guy at the end of the day. But I think that he does offer more coverage ability because he's a little bit lighter on his feet. He's got some good length to him too. I mean, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but I do like his ability. I think that his awareness puts him in better positions than some of the other guys. And as a, special teamer, he'll do just fine. I guess at the Sam position, I mean, you've got some guys in here that are interchangeable, right? You've got Derek Barnes. You have Malcolm Rodriguez. He can play the Sam as well. Right now, I have 6 linebackers making the squad, and those are going to be your 6: Derek Barnes, Alex Anzalone, Jalen Reese-Maben, Jack Campbell, Steele Chambers, Malcolm Rodriguez. Practice squad, obviously, you're going to need 1. But between those 6, that'll round out the Mike, the Will, and the Sam. And the Lions will probably be looking for other cuts to add to this roster in that position because we're still thin. What do you think about the linebacker spot?
Linebacker position, if we can get anywhere close to 129 tackles out of Anzalone again, I'm all for it. That is fantastic. And I think that the biggest jump of anyone this year is going to be Jack Campbell.
I agree with you there. I think Jack,
as long as Barnes can keep it consistent and keep going and not get injured, start doing what he did at the very end of the season. I really liked what he did in the playoffs, getting his first interception against Tampa Bay, but then he went to the NFC Championship game, got injured right away. We didn't see him the rest of the game. So he needs to stay healthy, needs to stay on the field. And I think Barnes is finally starting to put it together. And I hope that Jack Campbell puts it together a lot faster than Barnes is.
So safety position. And I agree with all that. I think that Jack Campbell's going to have a heck of a second season. I really do. He really surprised me a little bit last season with some of his play. I expected more from him. But I think as the season kind of rolled on, you saw glimpses of what he can be. Mm-hmm. And I think that the ceiling's really high for him. I think that we got a taste of what Jack Campbell's going to be able to do. I think that he's going to be a very good linebacker in this league for 10 seasons, if not more. Safety position worries me. I don't know how to say it other than it worries me. Let me pull something up here. Because according to this depth chart, we've only got like 6 guys. But let me pull up the Lions one real quick. Yeah, I've got Jalen Garnes, Brandon Joseph, Kirby Joseph, Ifeatu Melifonwu, CJ Moore, Lauren Strickland, Sion Vaki, of course. That's it. That's all we have. That's from the Lions. That's from the Lions website. So you've got Ifeatu Melifonwu, CJ Moore, Jalen Garnes at strong safety, Kirby Joseph, Brandon Joseph, Lauren Strickland at free safety, and then at nickelback you have Brian Branch, Ennis Rakestraw, and Morris Norris. So it worries me. Safety worries me a little bit. Now I think that you really need 6 safeties, 5 to 6 safeties. If you want to throw the nickel back in there, I think that's where you get 6. Like if you did 2 free, 2 strong, 2 nickels, that kind of covers your safety positions and gives you some versatility between guys that are playing the nickel and playing safety. So I'm a little concerned about the safety position. I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions still go out and find somebody, but Ifeatu Melifonwu, Kirby Joseph, Brandon Joseph, I think make this roster. And Brandon Joseph that's a tough one for me. CJ Moore being back, he's probably going to make this roster, guys. I really did not expect to see CJ Moore back, but I don't think that you can deny, he was pretty solid, especially on special teams. He was one of our aces on special teams, but he was pretty solid, as a veteran safety in this league. He's better than your average guy. I don't have any numbers on him right now, but so if you out to Melifonwu, CJ Moore at strong safety, and you've got Kirby Joseph, Brandon Joseph at free safety, and you've got Brian Branch and Sion Vaki, they give you really good positional versatility that I think round out that room. And I'm looking to see if the Lions are going to add to this room, throughout training camp and then after cuts. There's going to be some cuts this year. We know that Brad Holmes usually picks up one guy, maybe two guys after cuts, and definitely fills up the practice squad room. I'd have to go back and look at the transactions from last year, but I'm almost positive that we added a couple of guys last year after the cuts were done, and throughout the waiver wire and whatnot. Anything you want to add to safety?
CJ Moore, he was having one heck of a season, and then he gets popped for the gambling suspension. So he signs a contract worth $3 million a year. 1 week later, he gets the gambling suspension. He's suspended for a year. I just hope that he's still in shape. I hope that the whole time he was off, all he was doing was working out, staying in shape, doing mental reps. If he can come back and be what he was before the suspension, I'm fine with him coming back and being on the roster. Not maybe technically a starter, but being on the roster.
So, I would assume, that he stayed in shape. Otherwise, the Lions wouldn't have brought him back. I'm sure they brought him in for some sort of a workout. I just have
to wonder, taking a year off, even if you are maintaining, taking a year off is a year off. That kind of sucks. Got to get back in the groove, and hopefully it doesn't give him a step back. You know what I mean? Doesn't put him behind the 8 ball.
Well, we know this. He's going to be fresh. Yep. Hopefully he's not soft, but he's going to be fresh. And soft meaning, you don't take hits for a full year. Your body kind of softens up a little bit. So last season, when you look at the safeties, the secondary as a whole, we had Cam Sutton, Jerry Jacobs, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Emmanuel Mosley, Kirby Joseph, Tracy Walker, Brian Branch, Will Harris, Khalil Dorsey, Stephen Gilmore, Ifeatu Melifonwu. The Lions kept 11, which was a good number in my opinion. So I've already have 4 safeties pegged to make this roster. That gives me 7 more spots based on last year's roster to round it out here. So Terrion Arnold, lock. Meek Robertson, lock. Brian Branch, lock. Ennis Rakestraw, lock. Carlton Davis, lock. Khalil Dorsey, Kendall Vildor, locks.
Really?
And Emmanuel Mosley, I don't know enough yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to put him as a lock. That's 8. That leaves Stephen Gilmore and Craig James, the old meteorologist, Craig James, fighting for a spot. So that would be 9 additional guys. There's no way that we're keeping 13. There's no way. So out of that list, I would say it's going to be a tougher road for... I think it would be a tougher road for either Kendall Vildor or Khalil Dorsey than it would Stephen Gilmore. But I love Kendall Vildor's experience. So Khalil Dorsey and Stephen Gilmore would be out, I guess, at the end of the day, which leaves me with 7. So I'm going to go nickelback. You have 2. Left corner, you have Carlton, Emmanuel Mosley. So that's 2. Right corner, you have Terrion Arnold, Amik Robertson, Kendall Vildor. You have 3. So in total, it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, or 2, 4, 6, 8. That's 11. So 11 guys. Who do you like out of that whole DB group?
Well, I love Terrion Arnold and Rakestraw. I think they're going to be this 1-2 punch that's going to be here for a long time. And they're going to be friends off the field and on the field. And I think that's just going to be some chemistry you can't replicate. Might take a year or two to get there, but it's going to be awesome. I think Vildor, I would want him back on the team. But one thing that AG needs to do is take him in practice and have him practice deflecting balls off of his face mask the other way, or hitting it with his hand and not the face mask. Just practice that all practice long, and then he's fine. Other than that, he's good. I really like some of the stuff Vildor did at the end of the year. You know, me and my buddies, we called him Vildor the Conqueror, or like Conan the Barbarian. He was Vildor the Conqueror, and we had fun with it, and we kind of liked Vildor, and he was kind of a little guy story. He'd been pushed off by all the other teams and came in and played pretty darn well, and I liked him. I'm sorry, I liked Vildor. I just didn't like what he did in the NFC Championship game.
Well, I mean, he had a terrible season as far as his passer rating was like 147. It was as terrible as it gets. He had a terrible season when it came to that, but he was also only starting like the last 6-7 weeks of the season plus playoffs. So you're kind of missing out on half of the season, but that still doesn't mean that he was playing well. I think that his experience is enough to make this team on a revamped team where, now he doesn't have to feel like he's got to do too much, right? Yeah. Cam Sutton was a huge liability. Jerry Jacobs was a huge liability. This is a different team this year. I think that when you have better players around you, you're going to get better. And I think Kendall Vildor is going to go back to being the player that he was, with Chicago. I mean, he played pretty well. He was definitely not the player he was last year. And for whatever reason, he just had a crap season. And then I'm not going to call him out for a couple of those plays. I mean, crap happens. I mean, you go up for an interception. That's a tough ball to go up and get. You're running downfield, you're jumping, you're turning, you're leaning backwards, and the ball goes through your hand, clearly facing the sun. Not an easy catch to make. I guess I would put the indictment on Cam Sutton, because when you look at that picture, Cam is just kind of standing there looking.
Yeah.
Like, why are you not going to the play? Why are you not going to help the play? What if AU caught that ball cleanly and Vildor couldn't get him down and you're just over there standing kind of looking? That to me was more of an indictment on Cam Sutton for not helping. Where was the help over top? He didn't have any. And I'm sorry, putting Brandon Ayuk on Kendall Vildor was the first mistake AG made.
Yeah.
So let me add this up real quick. So 16, 19, 21, 30, 54. I got 54. So I got to cut some, and I haven't even gotten to special teams yet. So I've still got some hard cuts to make. And I think that first position is probably going to be offensive line. We'll go with 9. Tight end, we've got 3. Quarterback, we got 2. Running back, we got 3. Hold on a second here. What did I do wrong? I don't know what I did here. I'll come back and fix this, and we'll talk about it another day. Some of my numbers just got blended together for some reason. I don't think that I have 54. So wide receivers, I said 6. Offensive line, I had 10. Tight end, I had 3. Quarterback, we had 2. Running back, I had 3. That takes care of the offense. Right? So that's 16, 21. That's 24. 24 guys on the offense. And then defensive tackle or left defensive end, that's where I was missing. So left defensive end, I had 3. Defensive tackle number 1, I had 2. Defensive tackle number 2, I had 2. 1, 2, 3. We'll go defensive tackle number 2. I got 3. Right defensive end, I had 3. And then middle linebacker 3. Will linebacker 3. No, I'm sorry. Will linebacker, Sam linebacker, and Will linebacker, I had 6. And then we go to strong safety. 2, free safety 2, left corner 2, right corner 3, nickelback 2. So that's 3, 5, 11, 17, 25. That's 28. So that puts me at 52. So I'm still going to have some cuts to make because we still need a punter, a long snapper, and a kicker. So special teams, obviously, you're going to have 3. That puts me at 55. Ooh. So I got 2 cuts to make. That's tough. It's tough because it's just so thin to me. Could you lose a linebacker? Possibly. Could you lose an offensive lineman? Probably. So we'll go 9 offensive linemen, and I think that's going to be an extremely difficult cut. Wide receiver, I think that you go from 6 to 5 potentially. I would love to see him keep 6, but I don't think it's needed. Linebacker, you could go from 6 to 5, but again, I feel like you don't have enough depth there, and you got some of your special teams guys that are, linebackers. Cornerback room or DB room, I just don't see anywhere where I can cut. So I'm down to 54. And I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take out one more wide receiver, which I don't like. We hope that we can get him back, as far as practice squad guys, that's going to be tough. So I got 53 now. 5 wide receivers, 9 offensive linemen, 3 tight ends, 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs. That should put me down to 22 players for the offense. And then 3 defensive ends on the left side, 3 defensive ends on the right side, 5 defensive tackles, 6 linebackers, 11 DBs, puts me at 28, 3 special teams, puts me at 53. That's my list.
Nice.
Chef Talks. Go ahead. Chef Talk says, Will, do you believe the Giants throwbacks could be fixed just by wearing white pants? So last night, did you guys see my post last night?
No.
Oh, man. Hold on here.
Helmets look like the Wolverines in just different colors.
You might get a kick out of this one. I thought it was pretty good, actually. Of course, Chef Talks is going to bring it up. Hold on here. Let me show you guys.
Was it on X or where did you post it at?
Yeah. So last night I said I'm not throwing shade on history, but don't these remind you of, that should say tube socks from the 80s from Kmart? I just can't unsee it now. That's exactly what it looks like to me. But I mean, look, I like the helmet. It's kind of got that winged look to it, kind of like the Michigan helmets, the old school Michigan helmets. I think the helmet's kind of cool. But other than that, I mean, those jerseys are, I don't know. The gold pants are hot. I mean, I like the gold pants.
If you look at the old one up on top there, see how big and blocky the numbers are? That's what I don't like, is those thin little numbers between the 2 white stripes. They didn't have that on that throwback uniform. Put some big block number in there. Why have that little skinny number? I don't like that.
I don't know, man. Yeah. So that was my post last night. And I guess the answer would be no. I don't think that I don't think that you can
even more like tube socks with white pants.
Yeah, it would. Spot on right there, Chef. It would look like a tube sock. Check my DMs, dude. I never check these things until later.
The gold pants look like a pair of tube socks that you wore for a while, cut in the grass or something, and you washed them and they're still dirty. Oh,
yeah. What's up with Daniel Jones here rocking these things? That I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to show this too. There is something up with Daniel Jones' eyes, and I'll let you guys make your own decision here. But when I watched him at the press conference, and now looking at his eyes again here, I mean, he just looks like
a stalker.
Something, yeah, like something that you would see on a late night criminal show. I'm not going to say it, but that's just, yeah. He doesn't look comfortable.
He's ready for his episode of Law and Order.
Yeah, something's off with him. I swear, something's just not fitting the bill there. So anyway, yeah, I do like the gold pants. I think the gold pants are kind of cool, but I think, yeah, if you wear white pants with that, you definitely look like a tube sock. But whatever. I mean, I'm surprised that my brain went there immediately. Like I saw those jerseys. I'm like, oh my God, that reminds me of the tube socks from back in the 80s. I hated those things, man. They went up to my knees. Yeah. Fun stuff. All right. So that's it. I think that's all we had for today. Dang, we eked out a 2-hour show on a Friday. It was supposed to be an hour. All right. So one more thing here. I'll pop it up again. Bus trips. So you can email me info@rockdownpodcastnetwork.com for more information. But I think what I'm going to do is probably I might create a social media for this if I can. Like I might create another page that'll be just dedicated to bus trips for the Lions. And I'll probably have to do it on Facebook where I can create more pages. I think Twitter's kind of funny with that, but at least that way we have an area where people can kind of congregate and chat and talk. Now, look, there's only 50 seats available. There's only 45 seats available. I've got to retain 5. So there's only 45 seats available, and it's first come, first serve. Once I put out the numbers, so I'll put out a graphic just like this with all the numbers of the deposits, total cost. That should all be pretty locked in by this weekend. Deposits are going to be due like really soon because we're going to have to buy tickets right now, and at least secure our tickets and figure out which games we're going to go to. The Texas trips, those are the 2 that we might only be able to do one. We'll see how it goes. But as far as the Texas trips go, I mean, you're talking 20 hours on a bus. I don't think it's a big deal personally, but it's going to be an event. Let's just say that it's going to be fun. Obviously there's a bathroom on board, so you don't have to worry about that. And we'll take some breaks, get out and stretch your legs. Shout out Braylon, $5 super chat says, for the bus trip, are you going to do this on a ticket sharing website? Eventbrite. I've never thought about doing it there. I don't know what that is. If you want to, send me some information to the direct message there on Twitter, I'll be more than happy to look at it. I'll research it today, but I have no idea what that is. I could probably utilize my buy me a coffee thing for it, which is obviously already established. I just have to create an event. But all of the money obviously goes directly to the sources. It doesn't necessarily come to me. I don't think that I really have to go out and buy a bond or anything for this, but if I need to.
I've done a few trips with Eventbrite, and I think it's just like a ticket sharing mechanism for you to host different events.
I don't know what it is, but I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I do know this though. The tickets are not resellable. So when you put your deposit in, the deposit is for the ticket. Like that's the first purchase. So if you can't go and you cancel within the time frame that you're allowed to cancel, because there will be a limited time frame that you can cancel, or if you don't make your second deposit on time and we have to cancel you, then we will try to repurpose your ticket and then give you your money back. That's the plan. I don't want you to be without money. I don't want you to have there might be a small non-refundable part, but am I going to tax you? What does that mean? The cost is the cost. Like whatever I pay, you pay. That's it. I do this stuff for free. I'm not making money on these things. This is what I call the name of this, which we can come up with a name if you want, but I'm calling it Fan Possible. So I want to make it possible for fans to go to away games. People that haven't been to games before, people that haven't been to an away game before. I'm trying to bridge that gap of Detroit Lions fans that have not been to a game ever, or game, super fans, fans that want to be at every game to support the team, want to meld those together and create an annual tradition that you can count on. A good fun group of 50 people that gets together every year, that has fun together. And then maybe we add a second bus down the line or a third bus down the line. That would be the goal. So obviously going all the way out to the 49ers on a bus would be terrible. We'll plan to fly to that one.
I already planned my trip yesterday.
No, so Braylon, the money is, again, it's the cost. So for instance, like Chicago is close to $450, $500 per ticket, but that includes, you get a custom t-shirt for the event. I don't know what it'll be yet. I got to make something up. You'll get a grab bag that'll have some Lions gear in it. You'll probably have like a koozie and some other things in it. Your t-shirt will be in there. So that's worth like $50. And then you'll have, well, coming from me, it's probably worth more. I'll sign it for you. I'm just kidding. So anyway, there's a lot of little things that come with it. Obviously a box lunch, you'll have soft drinks and water and all that stuff available on the bus. We'll do a tailgate at the events that we can tailgate at. Some tickets will be all inclusive food and drink in the stadium. Obviously the tips, the bus, everything's all included. Hotel stay if we need to stay for a night. I'll plan that everybody has their own room unless you guys tell me I'm going to go with this person. We can share a room, or if you're bringing your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, your father, your brother, your uncle, doesn't matter. And you're going to room together. You just got to let me know so that you can not pay the full rate twice. So anyway, that's the plan. I don't know what Kim Possible is. I don't, but Fan Possible is what I started with. We can work on a better name. Right now, it's just the Rock Down Detroit Lions bus trips. So we'll have fun with it. It is 10 a.m. It's time to sign off. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. I'm going to go jump on the tractor and go start working on landscaping for the rest of the weekend. But then I'll be back tonight. Remember, Friday night, Off the Cuff podcast starts at 7:30. I'm not real sure what we're going to talk about yet tonight, but I'm sure I'll figure that out while I'm out banging my head against more 4x6s today. So if you guys don't know, now you know. The other day I was working in the backyard and damn near concussed myself. I was sinking a post and I put a nailer on it so it could stay straight, right? And I picked it up and I went to put it back in the hole, and the nailer caught the edge of the grass, and the 4x6 launched into my head. And I thought I was going to be knocked out. Like it, and I got a surgically repaired neck. So it crunched, wasn't fun, but it's caught on camera. I don't think that I'll ever share it, but it's on camera. I went back and looked at it, and yeah, you could tell I was hurting, man. Not fun, but all right. Anything else today, Eric?
I won't be in the chat or on the show tonight. I am going to be on a beach somewhere looking for rocks.
There you go.
I got to go talk to some rock people today.
I'll tell you what, I know Megan's got a tough schedule, but maybe when I get back from Florida or something, we got to get our butts up there.
Well, watch your mailbox. You should be getting something from me today.
Oh, that quick?
Yeah.
Wow.
Either today or tomorrow, you should get something really cool for me. And then Michigan dad there,
Ornery U of M dad, yeah.
Yeah, U of M dad, Doug. I emailed him and I never got an email back. So if he's watching, I need your address.
Yeah, I'll reach out to him too. Could have went to spam. So, all right, you guys enjoy the weekend. Mike P, glad you just joined in. Reload it, buddy. Reload it and wind it back.
Yeah,
maybe wear a helmet. Yeah, thanks, Chef. Maybe wear a helmet. Come on now. All right. I'm gonna go put on my tube socks, go get to work. You guys take care. Have a wonderful Friday. Enjoy the weekend. Go Lions.
Rock on.